I will say 99% of the time I brought back the babies. I, gosh, I went on one transport. It was one of my last transports that I went to get a baby who fell asleep. Mom fell asleep while breastfeeding, so the baby was asphyxiated. And the hospital, it was winter, Pennsylvania ice storm, just set that tone. And they, the hospital couldn't intubate the baby, so couldn't put a breathing tube in the baby. And it was the middle of the night, and I was sent out with like literally a ripped off piece of paper from my doctor who was just woken up and said, "This is all I have. Just get there." And so I'm in the back of an ambulance because it was like snowing, sleeting, ice, and the life flight team that was at the hospital that I worked at, we were very safe. So we didn't take any chances. We didn't fly under any precaution with weather. Like if it was a weather issue, we always went by ground, meaning ambulance. So I had to go by ground in an ambulance. I'll kind of give you a little backstory. We had just gotten a new ambulance with a new stretcher that only fit in this ambulance. So that's important later on in this story. So we go, that trip is about 45 to 50 minutes. And I get a call from my charge nurse in the back of the ambulance. And she, I won't name her just for that purpose, but I love you because this was the scariest moment and you just made it the most calm as possible. She was like, "Hi, Anne. How far are you from the hospital?" And so I asked them, I'm like, because I don't know where I am. I'm in the back of an ambulance trying not to get sick. So they're like, about 20 minutes. And she's like, "Okay, well, they wanted you to get there as fast as you can because the blood gas was 6.8 and blah, blah, blah." I won't give you the values because it won't matter to some of you, but it was bad. It was not compatible with life. So I then had to go lights and sirens in a ice storm with a very green life flight team. So meaning new. And I was trying to prepare myself because you have no idea what you're walking into. Like I had, you come in and they look at you to be a savior, and I have to evaluate, okay, where's the baby? Where are we at? What's going on? What have we done? What do we still need to do? Blah, blah, blah. So I get there. They were able to put a breathing tube in, but it was way too small for the baby. They were unable to get an oxygen saturation. The baby was gray. It was not a good scenario. So first thing I did was establish a better airway. So I intubated the baby. X-ray was waiting for me to verify placement. I backed up. I smashed my head off the X-ray machine. This is how traumatizing this transport was for me because I remember every detail. I smashed my head off the X-ray machine. Tube was in good placement. Still couldn't get any perfusion to the lower extremities. I had no idea if this was a cardiac kit on top of, the accident that had just happened. Blah, blah, blah. But at this point, I was on the phone with my doctor, and they were switching out. So they had one doctor was leaving and another one was coming in, which that was weird. I don't know why that timing was that way. Or maybe I left in the evening and then they switched out once I got to the hospital. But anyways, I was having to talk to two different physicians at that point. So on the phone, they said, the transfer center just said that they have a window to fly. And I was like, perfect. This kid needs to go. So at that point it was like, okay, let's get out of here. So we load the kid in the isolette. Remember back when I said that we got a new ambulance with a new isolette and stretcher? Yeah, that stretcher doesn't fit in a helicopter. So I had to wait for the helicopter to get to me to move the kid to another isolette. Did all that, load the kid in the helicopter, pulling up dopamine in the back of the helicopter, lift about 4 feet off the ground, and the pilot's like, "I can't fly. I lost visual." So I had to land back down. At this point, was like at my wit's end. I couldn't. I was about to cry, but couldn't cry because I didn't have time to cry. So I was like, let's just go. And they were like, we can't, this stretcher doesn't fit in the ambulance. So I said, take me to the ER, find me a trauma bay. I need to just do this as quickly as possible. So again, I have to transfer this kid to another isolette, put in the back of an ambulance, and get the heck home. The long story short of this scenario is that baby went home bottle feeding. So his life was saved, even though my life was forever affected by this horrible night, winter night in Pennsylvania. But, those are the stressors. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent with that story, but, that just sets the idea of like what I went through and like why maybe you can understand I needed a little break from transport, because it's joyful and great and you're proud of yourself because you're doing all these fun tasks, but then you forget why you do the tasks, because these babies are sick and things happen. And this was a really awful experience. And, I get back and there's only so much you can do in the air, on the ground, at other hospitals that don't have a NICU, because you're going there because they can't care for the baby. So when that baby got back to our unit, we had a different ventilator set up for him. We had nitric ready, and then the kid was actually placed on ECMO. So none of those things I could do on transport. So, even though it's like, okay, yes, that was a crazy, awful experience, I kind of aided in saving his life. So that's pretty cool. And I was able to do that, on my own with like my nursing judgment, making those decisions and my skills that I spent a year in orientation learning how to do. I was able to implement that under really stressful conditions.